Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Myself Swagat from Advantage Learning Solution. Welcome to the Reservoir Surveillance and Tight Reservoir Management workshop. We are excited to have you here. Today we have Mr. Vinod Kumar Madem, a reservoir engineering expert. He will be sharing practical insights and techniques to help us better manage tight reservoirs. We really appreciate your effort to take out your time. We will make every effort to make this informative for you and will give as much as information as possible. Guys, if you have any query, please feel free to ask, and please keep yourself mute to avoid any interruption in the session. That's all from my side. Vinod sir, the mic is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Swagat. It was very nice of you introducing me. So, yeah, I need to share my screen, but it's not turned on. If you can just give me the access.
Yes, yes, I'm making the host
Yeah.
first. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So, I hope you can see my screen. Can someone confirm?
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay. Thank you. Uh, so, as Swagat told, like when we thought of proposing this course for especially professionals and of course students who are interested to learn about reservoir surveillance and of course tight reservoir management. So we had a challenge to format the content because it's a very vast subject, reservoir surveillance. Because you cannot call reservoir surveillance as reservoir management or reservoir monitoring. It's a separate branch which integrates management and as well as monitoring. So it took a lot of time to prepare content and with the inputs of Advantage Learning also, which uh, demands this course to be more practical and thought-provoking and more basic. So I'll just try to take you through the entire journey of reservoir surveillance, where it starts from reservoir engineering as a discipline to reservoir surveillance, and then we'll go ahead with the second topic, which is tight reservoir management. So the objectives of this course would be to understand RE as a discipline. The second would be understand the fundamentals of surveillance operations, where we start this from military surveillance, because that is from where every engineering domain started their own surveillance operations. So we'll start from that, the background of surveillance, and why do we need reservoir surveillance from SPE, the biggest authority in the entire world, Society of Petroleum Engineers. Then we will also look at some reservoir management principles and objectives. Then the part two comes where we focus more on unconventional resources, especially on tight reservoirs like tight gas and tight oil. So then we will focus on the way ahead. Like we are also planning a like second course, which follows up this course in future. So the first part of this course would be mostly on reservoir surveillance. So this figure is for you to understand the cycle of surveillance, where we integrate the parts in circle in oval shapes, GNG, reservoir characterization, sampling, dynamic data, well design, drilling, planning, economics, production optimization, and reservoir simulation. So these 10 components are the thick and thin of reservoir surveillance. So to first start with surveillance, we need to understand RE as a discipline, because I can see the people in this webinar are from all disciplines, not just reservoir engineering. So we want to make this course very basic and at the same time very in deep course. Okay, so I will tell you why surveillance needs all personnel, not just reservoir engineers. So reservoir engineering is a branch of petroleum engineering that applies scientific principles to the fluid flow through porous media. When we talk about development and production of oil and gas reservoirs to obtain high economic recovery. So RE comes in where we try to develop the field and of course get some production and make economic value from that field, because ultimately we need to produce maximum at minimum cost. That is the goal of every company, especially from our reservoir engineers point of view. So what RE does? a reservoir engineer in the industry does. How much oil and gas is originally in place? How much oil and gas is recoverable, which is coming from recovery factor? What would be the drive mechanisms for the reservoir? Whether it is aquifer drive or sorry, water drive, expansion, gas cap, whatever. There are 7 drives in the reservoir development. What will be the future production risk from the reservoir, which is a part of surveillance again, from management and monitoring? How can the recovery be increased economically? Ultimately, we need to get more production at minimum cost. So, in an economical manner with very low capex and opex, how can we optimize production? Not maximize, but optimize. What data are needed to answer these questions? So a very basic definition for you. A reservoir is something that is capable of storing and transmitting any kind of fluid, whether it be oil, gas, or water. Okay, whenever it is water reservoir, we call it aquifer. So some examples of drives like solution gas drive, where the gas, dissolved gas in the oil expands and it will try to push oil towards the production well. The second is gas cap drive, which expands from the top when the pressure is below bubble point pressure, and it applies force such that oil goes in the production well. Then water drive, where the bottom water encroaches from edge or from bottom, or if it's a linear system also, this water pushes the oil toward production well because there is voidage creation in the oil reservoir with production. So there's a very interesting paper which is published in 1965. So this manuscript is received by SPE office on August 8th, 64. Then they published it in 1965, where the conference took place, which is SPE annual fall meeting in Houston, 39th edition of SPE annual fall meeting in 1964 during October. So this paper is completely focused on what is reservoir engineering. That's it. So some of the best content, like some of the best summaries of this paper, RE, reservoir engineering involves more than applied reservoir mechanics. The objective of engineering is optimization. Of course, we need to get an optimized production with a minimum cost, and we need to maximize that as well. To obtain optimum profit from a field, the engineer or the engineering team must identify and define all individual reservoirs and their physical properties. Of course, reduce each reservoir's performance, prevent drilling of unnecessary wells, initiate operating controls at the proper time, and consider all important economic factors, including income taxes. So see, the definition is very, like the content is very good. So he's talking about performance, physical properties, the segments where we divide the entire field into different pools based on their pressure. Then we also should prevent drilling of unnecessary wells because it involves cost, the OPEX. If it is not a part of FDP, then it involves OPEX. It is a part of OPEX. Initiate operating controls at the proper time, of course. And of course, including income taxes. So see how he defined reservoir engineering as. Also, reservoir engineering does not start at some time after a field is developed. For maximum effectiveness, it must start simultaneously with discovery. So when discovery occurs, whenever we drill an exploratory well, when we apprise the field, when we discover, maybe if it is oil bearing. So then the reservoir engineering work starts actually, not just during development. So well locations, DSTs like drill stem tests, selection of logging tools, and determination of completion intervals are all reservoir engineering problems. All development and operating decisions should be made by an individual who recognizes the dependence of the entire system upon the nature and behavior of reservoir. So the author is telling us that uh, to do a reservoir engineering study, only RA is not sufficient. A reservoir engineer is not sufficient. We need a multidisciplinary team. So the ultimate gist of this paper is REs often disagree in interpreting a field performance. Generally, incorrect interpretations result from ignoring significant facts or from a failure to dig deep enough to uncover all the facts. That means the data that we take in doing a reservoir engineering study is important. So when we ignore significant facts, it leads to a misinterpretation. Incorrect interpretations also result from an unwarranted reliance on field performance curves and calculation procedures as tools for interpreting reservoir performance. So the main benefit of reservoir surveillance is also monitoring. The behavior of reservoir should be monitored continuously or surveillance. So reservoir engineering is difficult. That's what he's saying. It's a very important point. Reservoir engineering is difficult. It's not easy. The most successful engineer is usually the one, is usually the one who makes the greatest effort to define and evaluate the reservoir system and uncovers the most facts. So an engineering study is that it will be very practical, not like a scientist study. Okay. So there is always a like uh, what to say, always a geoscientist and a reservoir engineer doesn't agree. You can see in any company, geologist and reservoir engineer are into different sides of the coin. So they never agree because in static manner, geologist thinks, but in dynamic sense, reservoir engineer only runs simulations. So that's what. So engineers should uncover the most facts and give them as an input to other team members. And that is our RA job. So let us focus now on types of petroleum reservoirs, which are broadly classified as oil and gas reservoirs. We can see oil and gas reservoirs as a broad classification. These are on the basis of the composition of reservoir, hydrocarbon mixture, the composition of gas fractions in oil if it is dissolved when we do testing, the PVT relationships. Then also depending on initial reservoir pressure and temperature, we categorize reservoir. Then also PNT of surface production. So we need to look at the phase diagram and understand what is the uh, production profile. When we start from a liquid zone, which is oil, that is mostly at high pressure and low temperature, and when it enters the two-phase envelope, what is the separator condition we try to focus on. Okay, and where we hit the separator conditions within the reservoir, it's also important because with time pressure depletes and it starts giving out gas as a free component when pressure goes below bubble point pressure. So based on type of petroleum fluid, we have oil reservoirs, dry gas reservoirs, and gas condensate reservoirs. Based on technology of exploitation recovery, we have conventional and unconventional. So the main point of putting this slide is to let you know the part two of this course. As the technology to produce an unconventional resource matures over the years, unconventional may be regarded as conventional. So we can also convert some unconventional fields to conventional fields because the technicalities uh, growing at a fast pace. Every country is focusing mostly on uh, technical advancements, right? So we can also categorize some of the unconventional reservoirs as conventional sooner. So for an integrated reservoir engineering study, we have three components. One is mass conservation equation, second momentum conservation equation, and third is thermodynamics. So in mass conservation equation, we have two basic equations: continuity and material balance. So if there are any RAs in the meeting, you can I think you can understand what is MBAL, the meaning of MBAL and what is the benefit of doing MBAL analysis. Okay. So continuity equation is simple. Mass in minus mass out is accumulation. And medbal is the continuation of that actually in dynamic sense in the reservoir. And we can call metal balance equation as zero dimensional because everything is focused at a single point in the reservoir. The second is momentum conservation equation, where we look at Darcy's law and flow rate equation. So what is Darcy's law? The velocity of fluid is proportional to the pressure gradient or hydraulic gradient. And flow rate equation, where we derive different equations for different fluid phase regimes or state regimes like steady state, pseudo steady state, and unsteady state. And thermodynamics, it's a very important component in composition simulation, where we carry forward these both equations and add thermodynamic concepts like equation of state and pivot relationships. So when we look at composition simulation, which is a uh, the best simulation what we can do ever in the industry because it tracks the changes of compositions of each component in the phases of each fluid flowing in the reservoir if it's a multi-phase fluid. Okay, so these three are very important for a for an integrated reservoir engineering study. So the first and foremost step to let you take through let me take you through the surveillance plans of reservoir engineering is to understand why should we do monitoring in any industrial system, not just reservoir. It can be anywhere in the world. So the monitoring process varies based on systems mission critical nature. Of course, we need to know the output of this monitoring process. So some of the steps involve sensing, monitoring, measuring, and feedback and taking feedback. So sensing is like detecting equipment condition and health. Monitor, we observe parameters and to ensure that they remain within set limits, and of course, measure and feedback to quantify and assess parameters for corrective actions. So sensing is the fundamental step. Then monitoring to detect variations in pressure, temperature, and fluid levels in the industry. Then also we need to look at relative levels to be monitored, prioritizing deviations over the exact values. So we have some set points, but measurement and feedback, it involves active participation in quantifying parameters. There are many parameters essential for understanding not just when a level is exceeded, but by how much and how quickly. So this is a dynamic concept, measurement and giving feedback to the team. It enables prediction of future occurrences, enhancing system reliability. So first we completed industrial monitoring. Now we need to look at military surveillance because this is where the industrial process start. So surveillance needs are defined by the ability to react to threats or tensions in a defined area. So what is this military surveillance defining surveillance has? So the need is to uh, look at the ability to react to threats or tensions in a defined area. So we need to react instantly or momentarily because that is important. So there are two. There is a very big statement: objective-driven surveillance. So as I have told you in industrial processing, we need to have an objective. The output should be known. So continuous surveillance is crucial if a critical event can escalate into a conflict quickly. So we need to do a surveillance continuously. And the design insight of this critical or objective-driven surveillance should be when the time to develop a tactical picture matches the time for a conflict to escalate. So we need to represent this surveillance need in front of the entire team because, as I've told you, it's a multidisciplinary approach. It's not just a person doing surveillance. So it should allow us to develop a tactical picture which matches the time for a conflict to escalate. So this now we have entered the actual concept of reservoir surveillance. So it is integral to initiatives in reservoir characterization, development, and management. So as I've told you, reservoir surveillance, when we break it into two different parts, it is monitoring and measurement or development and management. So this reservoir surveillance is integral to initiatives in RC, development, and management. So there are different stage dependent actions which depend on the stages of the field development. So we have, you can say primary recovery, where the natural damage of the reservoir is used, then secondary, then tertiary. So in each stage of development, so we can go for reservoir surveillance, which is customized in each stage. So surveillance programs go beyond mere data collection. It's not just about data, it's about using the data and making predictions based on the data. That's the engineer study. Though impact both routine and long-term decisions. So data should reduce uncertainty in parameter estimates or assist in decision making. Of course, we need to take decisions as an engineer. We can't just rely on data and give it to someone else. Like you take decision because we are the ultimate people or custodians to take decisions. The value of data equation is questionable if it doesn't aid in reducing uncertainty or support decision. This is a very important statement. So the value of data is of course useless when it is not allowing or not giving us a way to reduce uncertainty. The value of data equation is questionable if it does not aid in reducing uncertainty or support decisions. Okay. Yeah. So the objectives are technically to uh, they vary for each asset based on strategic business alignment. Okay, it's not just a common practice for every asset. It depends on the complexity of each asset and of course the technicality of each asset. So there should be some strategic alignment because we need to monitor and manage reservoir at the same time using surveillance operations. So there should be some strategic alignment where objectives are driven by aligning business drivers with specific asset goals. Ultimately, we are doing business. We are not doing some charity here. We are investing a lot of capex and opex. So ultimately, we need to look at business drivers. Example, which is a company involved in tar sands in Alberta mining might have a business driver to be the company of choice in heavy oil operations. So they are actually carrying out surveillance operations to be a company of choice in heavy oil operations worldwide. So that is their goal. This is the business driver for them to be a company of choice in heavy oil operations, not just make some value to that operation. Okay, they want to be a company of choice. So it depends on the objective of surveillance. That this driver leads to establishing specific surveillance objectives for the tar sands operations. So we need to understand the driver, and then we need to go ahead with the surveillance operation. So, for example, we have a gas injection project. Okay. So the objective for this project is to provide computer applications, processes, and producers to capture and deliver information on reservoir performance. So we need to provide computer applications, processes, and procedures. So this objective ensures easy and efficient access to accurate information necessary for reservoir management during gas injection. So that's the thing. When the objective is clear and crystal, we can ensure easy and efficient access to accurate information necessary for reservoir management. So the goal of reservoir surveillance in this project is to go for reservoir management during gas injection. So the importance of clear objectives is clear and concise objectives ensure alignment between strategic asset goals and the tactical details required to create an effective monitoring plan. Of course, the objective, if it is clear enough, then we can create an effective monitoring plan as a part of reservoir surveillance. So this you can see a plot between cash flow and life cycle of either project or asset. So you can see that the actual life cycle should be somewhere either blue or yellow. So you can see there's a deviation between the actual and the ideal. So the actual should be somewhere at the bottom, which is blue in color, but the ideal could be due to there are many factors: lower finding costs, lower capital costs, early first production, accurate and maximizing production at the wrong time, lower operating and intervention costs, increase in ultimate recovery, and of course abandonment costs. So we need to take decision at the right time. That's what he's saying. If it is not at the right time, then we cannot go ahead with the plan of what we have defined at the very starting as an objective. So the plans framework where asset and uncertainty management plans provide a framework for surveillance activity, maturation and selection. So of course, the activity that we choose as a part of reservoir surveillance should be fresh and young. It should not be mature or outdated. So similar to a project execution plan, a reservoir surveillance plan addresses key questions like what, how, why, and who. So there are some critical components like assigning ownership, defining governance, and establishing communication channels. So these three components are the critical components when we go for a plans framework, when we make a reservoir surveillance plan. So example, maybe in oil companies, major capital project teams hand over the project at first oil to the asset teams. Correct. When there is a first oil in the field for the first discovery well, when it's starting commercial production, then we hand over the project team to the asset team. Okay, that's the basic example of a like development plan. And this plans framework includes handing over. Handover includes transferring knowledge and defining data gathering philosophies during and after project startup. So the establishment of clear roles and responsibilities as a part of the handover process is important. So as I've told in the very starting, it's not just a course for reservoir engineers. It's for everyone because this surveillance plan or surveillance activity involves many personnel from operations, production, reservoir facilities, geologists, and petrophysicists. So as a part of operations personnel, these are responsible to collect and evaluate field data while operating assets. Production engineers, they prepare completion prognosis and recommend recompletion and reforestation as a part of well intervention and workover. Reservoir engineers, they perform reserves calculation, plan for new wells, and conduct reservoir modeling. The facilities engineers at surface, they design new facilities, maintain installations, and respond to emergencies. The geologists, they plan new wells and update interpretations based on new information, of course. And they because they are the ultimate beginners of any field development. And petrophysicists, they evaluate log and core data. So these six disciplines are a part and parcel of reservoir surveillance plan. So responsibilities of an activity under reservoir surveillance. So initial plan must include database setup, access, and spatial or temporal data comparisons. Of course, with space and with time, we need to compare this data. Okay, when we get database and access it. So we should also clearly define ownership for surveillance plan, data acquisition, quality analysis and quality control, processing, storage, access, interpretation, and integration. So So the data gathering effort should be divided into three different parts. We need to baseline data before starting a drilling campaign. Suppose we have a drilling campaign planned for additional drilling of 10 wells as a part of field development plan. So we need to have baseline data, the data of existing wells. Then we also take a baseline data from new wells, the upcoming wells, and we monitor this data. So surveillance plans should remain flexible and evergreen, and they should be updated at appropriate intervals. They can't be left unupdated. So the performance goals include the expectations must be set for all major asset components, including wells, reservoirs, fields, equipment, and facilities. So as I've told you, no two surveillance plans are the same. And of course, as one plan is different from another plan, we can link both all these plans if the reservoir is same, because we do segmentation in the reservoir modeling, and we need to integrate all this data as a common data for the surveillance plan for each of the field or each of the asset. These goals provide a basis for future comparison and analysis, and they are essential for effective asset management. So the key data streams important could be geological maps, mechanical well sketches, petrophysical summary, and open hole logs. So maps include structure maps, isopac maps, and well record maps. Well sketches include tubing, casing, wellhead data, and other equipment. Petrophysical summaries include formation logs, pay intervals, net pay, and sand identification information. And of course, open hole log includes the entire logged interval and their evaluation. So that the data required and availability could be production data, rock and core data, fluid properties, pressure data, authority for expenditure, of course, study reports, and reserve report data. So production data includes raw and allocated production data and allocation factors, because we do back allocation everywhere in any company which is operating. So we also should need rock and core data, like rock property data, core study data, and rock failure data from mechanical perspective, from routine and special core analysis, fluid properties from PVT relationships for wells and reservoirs, then pressure data from static and build-up data for all surveys during well testing, authority for expenditure for each well. We need to have a detailed justifications, because we get cost recovery from the government, whichever government you're working for. So we get a cost recovery. So we need to have detailed justifications for each well. Why there is a elevated cost on this well, and why not it is not as per the plan of this budget. So we have well summary sheet, which includes well histories. So study reports include field, petrophysical, reservoir, and geological studies. And reserve report data, of course, will be with reservoir engineers. So critical decisions under certain uncertainty could be the reservoir development, where we design only after production, not before production. So highlighting the challenge of making decisions with uncertainty. The key question could be, can we measure the right quantities at the right time and scale, which is never known to anyone. But as an engineer, we can do that. So as I've told you, the right time of action, not just planning, the execution of that action is important. So subsurface measurements include some of them made using intrusive equipment in wells and can disrupt production or injection. So we need to have a careful consideration regarding what to measure and when to measure it. So there's some characteristics like lithology, stratigraphy, net pay identification, fluid identification, distribution, rock characteristics, there are different types. Baseline, which is of course should be taken at the very starting, and the fluid identification is episodic, including wellbore condition and transmissivity for reservoir simulation. But there are some dynamic data like fluid distribution, where we generate that from reservoir modeling and simulation, connectivity of reservoir, pore volume, energy, and of course, well flow splits. So these measurements are having different types and different characteristics. So you can go through them whenever you get time. Coming back to this video. So episodic, continuous, and desired. So whatever geostatic data we have, like the baseline data, will be continuous, then desired. Okay, we need to observe and integrate the baseline data and make it dynamic or episodic. Because if we want them frequently to be measured, then we can recombine them or categorize them as dynamic or episodic data. So some of the measurement types include intensive and extensive properties. Like intensive, like density, resistivity, and permeability. Just for example, it's not the only thing. extensive like mass and volume. So the reservoir measurements include direct measurements and of course indirect measurements. So direct measurements are often infeasible except for fundamental quantities like mass, length, time, and volume. Very basic definition. But indirect, they respond to a stimulus, changes a system parameter. So response to a stimulus changes the system parameter, which when interpreted provides the point of interest. So we need to understand which measurement should be direct and which should be indirect. So as a part of reservoir surveillance, the measurement categories include petrophysical evaluation, sampling, and dynamic characteristics. So petrophysical evaluation like open hole and cage door logs. Then sampling, solid and fluid. Solid is like core and fluid is the fluid in place. Then dynamic characteristics like pressure, production, and flow. So there are some categories as a part of reservoir surveillance planning. So we have different equipment overview like tool assemblies and which can be open hole and cage door when we take measurements from petrophysics point of view. The equipment measurement application by project phase like during exploration, appraisal, development, production, and of course the tools which vary based on the phase requirements of the project. So there is a very basic tool during drilling which is DST, the drill stem test. So this is performed during exploration and appraisal phases. So can anyone from the audience tell me something about DST? If you can just unmute yourself and explain anything about DST. Anyone? You can type also in the chat box if you're okay with that. I want to be more interactive throughout. Just a one-liner. It's off. It's sufficient. Okay. So DST involves uh, testing of reservoir fluids which are produced soon after drilling is completed. Okay. When we won't run the production casing. Okay. So across the pay zone, we take fluid in a sample chamber which measures pressure and of course the sample type, sample volumes, the sample phases. So DST is like a elementary or a introductory well test because we can also measure the properties like skin factor, permeability, etc. from DST because we have a series of shut-in and flowing periods in DST. So when we run in the tool into the sampling depth and then we get a sample, we take a sample which has a pressure gauge in it, and then we can get the pressure of the fluid, and of course we can also understand the dynamic data and look at interpretation of this data to get production, the permeability and skin factor, which are very important as a part of reservoir stimulation activities, where we can plan to enhance production by altering near reservoir geometry. Okay, so just for as an example, I have kept DST here. So during exploration, appraisal, and develop and production, we have several objectives like to evaluate prospect risk and integrity, assess volumetric uncertainty, and during appraisal phase, reduce key reservoir uncertainties and establish development area, and of course determine production parameters. During production, we need to maximize production and minimize decline, the production decline, and of course the pressure decline. Then we need to also look at problem diagnosis and remediation, and we need to optimize resource recovery. So apart as far as this objective is concerned, we have different measurements. So it's already explained in the previous slides. You can just go through later. So the thing is, why should we need resource surveillance? So there's a very interesting definition by JPT, Journal of Veteran Technology from SPE, which says it is not unusual to compare a team of subsurface professionals to a team of detectives. Because of course, as we evaluate the dynamic data, which is coming with time, we are a detective, not just a professional. So we are looking at the data very specifically to actually get good information from that. Okay, we are not biased to the data. And to make sense of what is happening in hydrocarbon reservoir, subsurface teams like detectives typically have incomplete, sparse data sets sampled at different points in time and space. Of course, spatially and temporally, we have samples of data. This data only provides a partial picture of what has happened, but surveillance is an essential tactic to build a mental model of the situation. Fortunately, both detectives and subsurface teams have growing surveillance toolboxes to help fill information gaps and narrow the range of possible scenarios. Of course, we need to fill information gaps at the outset because as engineers and scientists, we are not just uh, the people who are listening to the management decisions, the business drivers. We are actually acting to the risk that is involved in this operation. Okay. So teams need to understand the capability of reservoir to store fluids, the stresses acting on the reservoir, what fluids exist and how they interact with each other, and the rock and how fluids are moving through the reservoir from subsurface point of view. So ultimately, we need to apply the right tools to the right problems to maximize the value of information we gather. Correct. So this is what SPE from JPT says. Okay, JPT from SPE says. So solutions include static map analysis, water management analysis, production performance analysis, and depletion analysis. So these all will be a part of this course. That's what I'm telling. So as a demo session, I can't go through the entire content of the slide. So we need to optimize time also. So this solutions is actually the part and parcel of the course, not what we have seen till now. That's for demo only, the baseline of this course. But we will mostly focus practically on reservoir surveillance. Okay, the practical of the topic of discussion. So we will look at static map analysis. We will look at water management analysis during water flooding. If we do, we can also work on a water flooding project. Okay, for water flood management and surveillance. We also can do production performance analysis and also depletion analysis. So these four will be a part of this course. That's what I'm telling. So it's a very good course. If you are really interested, you can take this course. It's of very good use to you. So we will also focus on some case studies at the end of the course. One case study is for planning and the other case study is for integration. So this module in the course presents some examples of good surveillance practices prevalent in the industry through field examples. So Mahogany Field uh, has a well-defined framework for surveillance, which was created that has helped with management buy-in to maintain a high level of surveillance despite operating expense challenges. So they have this plan of resource surveillance for two objectives. They want to look at well risk management review process and of course well by well review process. So they want to look at their development plan. So a clear policy was needed to develop all the reservoirs and meet the stated goals because they have a separate goal of production from their field. So to achieve that, they have planned a surveillance operation, which will be actually told to you in the course. Okay, I'm just giving an intro. So they have created a well-defined framework for surveillance that has helped with management buy-in to maintain a high level of surveillance despite operating expenses challenges. Because when development phase starts, we need to have a lot of OpEx. Okay, because the actual well plan as per GTO may not kick off in the same manner, right? The second example is for integration from Takula field. So the surveillance study served operational decision making as well as informing reservoir models to gain enough confidence in the predictability. So they want to optimize the production. These serve as a dynamic profile data at flow unit scale. These data are incorporated into the reservoir simulation model at the appropriate scale. So they are integrating the petrophysical data as a part of reservoir surveillance planning, and this level of integration can maximize the surveillance value for a given field. So that's what they have targeted. They have integrated petrophysical data with the reservoir modeling and sensitivity analysis as a part of simulation study. Okay, so these two case studies, of course, there are some more case studies which will be taken through or carried through in the actual course. So the value maximization, like it's a tree diagram where we take data connectivity layer first, then operational layer. Then we look at this is a practical thing, alarm system where we it's not an alarm system, it's actually where we like tell the person involved in the study to be more alert. And we also look at manual assessment. Then we have an event escalation layer where we prioritize different tasks as a part of plan. Then we have a surveillance service center. So this supplemented by expertise of asset specific expertise, performance forecasting, SME, subject matter expertise, and automated workflows. Okay. It's a value maximization, an operations based structure for surveillance value maximization. So ultimately, as a summary, we need to go for production monitoring, PTA, surveillance technologies, and data integration analysis. The objective ultimately is to enhance production strategies, reservoir management, and field development to maximize hydrocarbon recovery and economic value, of course. So real-time monitoring and data collection from wells and reservoirs to evaluate performance and optimize production as a part of reservoir surveillance. The second part of the course will be on tight reservoir management. So till now, any doubts? If someone can ask me quickly, we can discuss and we can go forward. You can also type in the chat box. It's okay. Okay, so I'll take doubts at the last. Okay. The second part of this course is on tight reservoir management. So, of course, before starting on this topic, we need to understand what is unconventional reservoirs. So, if you see the first figure at the top, 30% is only from conventional reserve, but 70% is from unconventional reserve. Okay, this is a liquid supply worldwide plot or say diagram given by ExxonMobil in 18 in their survey. So what actually defines this reservoirs? Techniques of extraction? Is it difficulties in processing the data? Huge capex? Improper understanding or lack of experience? So these five factors are the driving factors to call them as unconventional reservoirs. Okay. So if you see with the age by 2040, the conventional development or the share of conventional reservoirs is declining, but the share of unconventional like oil sands, tight oil, NGL, other liquids and biofuels is increasing. So this is something we need to look at as a part of unconventional reservoirs because now currently in US I can see more development, not anywhere else in the entire country, entire world. Sorry. So I define my definition for unconventional hydrocarbons can be defined as those which require unconventional technologies to recover them from subsurface as they cannot be produced with ordinary production well by simply pumping it in the natural state without being diluted or heated. Especially for heavy oils, we need to reduce viscosity. So we need in situ combustion in place or some thermal stimulation technique in the reservoir. Okay. So the parameters which differentiate unconventional hydrocarbons from conventional hydrocarbons are the nature of reservoir geologically, complex petroleum system, techniques for hydrocarbon extraction. So these three are the fundamental parameters that differentiate conventional and unconventional reservoirs. So the contrasting features between these both reservoirs from different elements like proximity to mature source rocks, migration of petroleum, reservoir trapping, charge area, resource in place, ability of rock to transport fluid, recovery potential, gas water contact, usual occurrence of water and pressure anomaly. So the main I will target now is only three: the charge area, the in-place resource, and the potential of recovery. So you can see the charge area. Of course, in unconventional, it is pervasive. It's huge in large area, but in conventional, it is little limited. Okay, the drainage area is little limited as compared to unconventional. The in place is very large in place of unconventional, but in conventional, it is very small. So the currently the field life of each field is typically, I think, uh, you can say 10 to 20 years, 30 years if it's a big discovery, 40 years. That's it. But unconventional, it keeps on producing. But the recovery potential in unconventional is relatively low because technology is so bad, it is not developed and they have complexities geologically. But conventional, it's moderate relatively. Okay. As compared to unconventional. So in the part of mechanisms of storage, the conventional gas reservoirs have gas in free state under compression, But in unconventional, the gas is in free state under compression, but also there is some gas in adsorbed state. So these variations are important to look at when we focus more on conventional gases and unconventional gases, shale gas or coal bed methane. Okay. Okay. So some more measurement methods for properties in unconventional place, like maturity from VR, witness reflectance, DOC from different rock methods, pyrolysis methods, composition from XRD and FTIR, porosity from different measurements in the laboratory, like MICP and helium gas porosimeter, then pore pressure from IFOT, injection fall-off test, and perforation inflow test analysis, and also log-based, permeability from, of course, from steady and unsteady state tests, and DFIT, diagnostic fracture integrity test, of course, IFOT, and RTA. And water saturation from core extraction from SCAL and also RCAL, temperature from open hole logs and production logs, properties of fluid from mudlock PVT and pressure gradients, of course, the gas which is sorbed and free from desorption experiment and Langmuir adsorption. The properties like mechanical properties from the dynamic static dynamic properties like Young's modulus, shear modulus, bulk modulus, and of course core-based compression and fracturing closure tests in case of shale gas where we do fracturing, multi-stage fracturing from mini frac, defit, log-based and calibrated to core. So the common features of unconventional reservoirs are like low porosity permeability, naturally fractured systems, no presence of traps, highest resource, and of course they require high cost. Technology to be commercially viable. So these are some common features, but especially when we look at geological features, factors, we have two different classifications like mineralogy, grain size and sorting, lithification, provenance, environment of deposition and flow regime, and also development of fractures, tectonics, diagenesis, including compaction, segmentation, and dissolution. So tectonics largely affects the pressure in thermal gradient because they are, of course, uh, having more commercial value, but less technological improvement. So some of the different features of unconventional reservoirs, like you can see the pore through diameter. If it is conventional reservoir, it is more than 1 micrometer. But for unconventional reservoir, it is less than 1 micrometer. And oil migration accumulation is mostly due to buoyancy in conventional, but unconventional due to overpressure, buoyancy, stable pressure, temperature, and stable pressure. So you can see the depth of each of the resource, tight oil, tight gas, and shale gas. It's of course you can see the viability or the uh, like like extraction methodology of each conventional and unconventional place. So you can see it is going narrower as we go towards bottom. Okay? The development plan or the availability or the technological improvement of each of these, you can say, play like conventional oil and gas and also unconventional oil and gas reservoirs. Okay. So the consistency of measurements and the related potential for error resulting from various assumptions in techniques used makes collaboration of measured properties by different techniques quite difficult in unconventional place. So if you can see, there is some distinction between total and effective porosity. So in conventional place, especially in sandstone or carbonate, we generally make these both equal, total and effective. But in unconventional, it's always this, the thing is that total is not equal to effective. There is some isolated pores in the reservoir. We need to get them in communication with the actual pores during using fracturing. That's what this is telling. Where shale matrix and total pore space has only effective pore space which is of less volume, which contains mobile and capillary bond water and hydrocarbons, but clay bond water is inaccessible. We are not able to access that. Okay. So different characteristics for tight reservoirs, because our focus is on tight reservoirs like mineralogy, formation process, porosity, permeability, heterogeneity, petrographical distribution with other formations, and geological evaluation. Mineralogy like siltstone, silty sandstone, dolomite, and argillaceous limestone. Formation process where we have sediment deposition, post-depositional diagenesis, and these alter the original structure of pores. Of course, porosity small to very small pores, permeability very low permeability in tight sands, heterogeneity high heterogeneity and anisotropic in nature. The properties are all anisotropic. And petrographical distinguishment, loss of primary porosity during the process of diagenesis, and existence of most porosity in the resolved pore spaces. So we have them inaccessible to the production activity of from these reservoirs. So we need to make them accessible. And of course, evaluation will be from borehole imaging, texture characterization, detection of calcite types of cement, and environment in which deposition had occurred. So from petrophysical point of view, we will focus mostly on the SP log and GR log for tight formations. So of course, from residue log, we can get SW, water saturation, which can be removed from the actual, you can say total saturation of the entire hydrocarbon, sorry, the reservoir fluid. So SW is a part, and of course, your SO is a part. If it is oil and if it is gas, SG is a part. Porosity of tight formation is measured by the means of neutron density and sonic log. Of course, they are porosity logs where neutron and density measure total porosity, but sonic measures primary porosity. High hydrogen atoms and lower neutron counts indicate high porosity in neutron porosity log. Using bulk density from density log, and of course matrix density by knowing the lithology, and fluid density log can measure the density porosity of tight formation. Of course. So when it is a tight gas, we need to go for measuring porosity from tight gas using RMS, root mean square of average. But if it is oil, it can be just harmonic average or arithmetic average. Okay. If you see a density neutron cross plot, so whenever there is a gas zone in the density neutron cross plot where density is increasing from right to left and neutron from left to right. Okay. So neutron porosity is high, and of course bulk density is also higher. So this ND, neutron to the left and density to the right, will give you gas crossover. So to measure the porosity of gas crossover zone or the gas zone, we can measure phi of gas should be phi neutron square plus phi density square upon 2 under root. So this formula can help us to measure the porosity in the gas zone if it is gas bearing tight reservoir. But if it's oil bearing, we can just go for average phi neutron plus phi density by 2. Of course, when we want to look at the NMR derived permeability, we can use this correlation from Coates model, and also there is a Cozzeni correlation. So these all will be taught to you actually in the course. Okay. Because of time limitation, I'm unable to teach you specifically. So we need to also look at developing tight gas sandstone reservoirs. What are the issues and decisions? Like we need to first focus on basin analysis and regional geology, where in drilling we need to go for method selection, completion, the stage completion stages, and production, which is gas fluid in tight gas reservoirs, sandstone reservoirs. Stratigraphy or structural analysis, seismic interpretation and attribute analysis, formation evaluation with well logs and core data, and of course the 3D reservoir model. So drilling could be method selection, loss circulation, stuck pipe, some problems, formation damage and sloughing and kicks. Especially in shale, we can experience maximum sloughing because shale is problematic. Okay, it's a clay-bound matrix in the reservoir. Completion like stage count, diversion technique, multi-zone completion, perforation design, fluid selection, propellant selection, and production gas flow rate, water production, artificial lift, tubing design, and casing diameter. So these are some of the components of each stage, drilling, completion, production. So when we compare different drilling methods, like conventional drilling, casing while drilling, coil tubing, overbalance drilling, underbalance drilling, and managed pressure drilling. So we have different drilling methods, like conventional, all these, and the different problems like lost circulation. So lost circulation is most common uh, in conventional drilling, but not in other practices. But formation damage reduction, there is no formation damage reduction in conventional, but little available in casing. But MPD, we have good formation damage reduction and also underbalance drilling. And kick detection, we can observe that we can have this feature in overbalance drilling, underbalance drilling, and of course managed pressure drilling. The complexity, which is very low in conventional, but very high in underbalance and managed pressure drilling. And ROP improvement, we cannot get in conventional drilling because it depends on the weight on bit and of course the D exponent in drilling. But it is possible in quality beam drilling and underbalance and managed pressure drilling. So the drilling and completion strategies for shale and tight reservoirs, because they're having low permeability, this can be, so we can go for drilling horizontal wells where drill bit is steered from its downward trajectory to follow a horizontal trajectory for the necessary distance, often 1 or 2 miles. So we have horizontal drilling, a picture for you to just show you where we go for continuous bed and make it horizontal. So in some naturally fractured tight gas reservoirs, horizontal wells can be drilled, but these wells also need to be stimulated. So that means we need to fracture. We need to go for multi-stage fracturing or single-stage fracturing, not just perforation, because they're very tight. Also, some of the advancements like pad drilling and multilateral drilling. So the number of stages, for example, can be determined based on stacking pattern of the trajectories of each pad of the same well. Okay, the same wellhead but different pads to the same wellhead. On the other hand, when a thick shale barrier separates two productive layers, multiple hydraulic fractures should be created, of course. So well completion strategy should be very quick or very innovative. So the design aspects that are most important to ensure a leak-free well includes drilling of wellbore to specification without any deviation of the plan, of course. The position of casing in the center of the wellbore is also important. The correct choice of cement, because as I've told in shale, there is sloughing shales, okay, which are problematic. So the correct choice of cement with least filtration loss is important. So as a part of this course, I think this marks the completion of this entire session. So LOs of this course, which was asked by Advantage team to just include, because ultimately we want you people to be experts in this course, not just having a basic understanding and forgetting it after some time. Okay. So LOs would be understanding fundamentals of subsurface engineering and surveillance, develop effective resource surveillance plans aligned with asset management objectives, apply data gathering techniques and advanced tools to gather reliable, high quality data. Because I have told you, the more data we have, the more problem we actually should face. Because we need to know how to integrate this data and use it in the surveillance planning. Characterize tight unconventional reservoirs and build dynamic models for field development, and conduct economic analysis and risk assessment for tight oil and pressure reservoirs. So in the actual course, we will also discuss on economics of this tight unconventional reservoirs. Okay. So thank you for your time. This marks the end of this course, of this webinar. So I'll take questions now. Okay. So the first question I got is from Preetom. So he's asking about a how to get, how can I use my skills to get into oil and gas industry? Okay, probably Preetam, I'll take this question at the end. Okay, so let's focus on technical questions. And second question also from Pakistan, Mohammed Naeem Khan. He wants to one relevant question. Sorry about that, but we'll ask as many regular classes like the seminar, because this class is very good. Okay, at the end we'll talk. Then Rajan, through drill stem testing, how much depth can we can collect the information? What about the limitations? Okay. So as I've told you, we generally run DST across the pay zone. So there is no dependence on the depth limitation, because before running production casing, we'll go for DST. So of course, there is no limitation in this depth selection or DST applicability, but we need to choose advanced equipment in case of HPSC reservoirs. Okay. When we have high pressure and high temperature reservoirs, we need to go for advanced equipment where the probe we use as a part of pressure measurement in the drill stem, okay, chamber is important. It should not get spoiled, or it should not uh, get unfunctional. Okay, we need to have some limitation for HPST, and generally HPST we won't go for DST. We go for well testing or the conventional well testing, the pressure testing. So there is no limitation of DST, but in HPST there is. So reservoir surveillance is the procedure which perform after well completion. Yes, it actually starts, reservoir engineering study starts from well completion or before well completion, where we drill development wells. But reservoir surveillance is that study which we do when we want to develop reservoir extensively in the minimum time. Okay, so surveillance actually has management as a vertical and monitoring as a vertical. So these two combine and give you surveillance. So we will of course start after well completion, but there are some technicalities involved, and we need to have objectives of the uh, surveillance planning and integration, as I've told you in different case studies. Okay. Good evening, sir. How can you use the Darcy equation to monitor reservoirs? Of course, Darcy equation will, as I've told you, which is relation between the superficial velocity of the fluid flow through the reservoir and the pressure gradient. So of course, this Darcy equation is the basis or the momentum conservation equation, where we look at the flow rate exactly happening from the reservoir to the bottom hole. across the reservoir pay, okay, till the drainage radius. So it has a very important component called permeability, the K factor. So this is very important as we talk about fluid flow and porous media. But this is like modified in case of different uh, effects like non-Darcy effects, where we have them in the near Wilbur region. Okay, and especially when we look at development planning, Darcy law is just a basic law, but we can't say that we can monitor reservoir with Darcy law, but it's an integral component at the baseline of the study. It's not the only thing, it's a component. And this is the primary law which is modified where every simulator runs. Okay. When we do reservoir modeling as a part of discretization, and then we make grids, we make skeletons, we do development strategy, whatever we can do. Mohammed Junaid is asking what are the key challenges in monitoring fluid flow and pressure behavior in tight reservoirs, and how can advanced surveillance techniques help overcome these challenges? Okay, so tight reservoirs, as I've told you, are geologically complex in nature, and the surveillance plans actually helped to uh, answer your question, because as the current technical development or technology development in every country is not that of that much value, especially apart from US. Okay, US has a good development because there are so many shale plays in US. But other areas where we talk about unconventional plays, of course, monitoring fluid flow and pressure behavior is possible using simulation study. Okay, analytical modeling is or monitoring is not beneficial or not trustworthy. We need to go for numerical modeling where we can get a clear picture. And of course, it's an indirect study, not direct study. So these challenges can be helped. This can be overcome by using numerical modeling and simulation. Okay, where we do an entire study from static modeling to dynamic modeling to running sensitivities. So, of course, Mohammed Jin is asking what are the skills required to upcoming engineering geologists to learn in field of hydrocarbon exploration. Okay, so as a geologist, you need to be either exploratory, exploration, or development. So I have seen market more focused on development geologist, because currently no short-term or short-term goal-oriented companies focusing on exploration. They're mostly focusing on making revenue. So when you are a part of development geology team, you can make a good career. Okay, I suggest you to search for an opportunity in development geologist as a development geologist, not as an exploration geologist. And okay, the very first question from Pritom. So you are from RJPT and you're a geoscientist working as a project fellow analyzing fluid flow through porous media using ANSYS fluent software. My question is, how can I use my skills to get into oil and gas sector as a professional? Okay, so you're a student right now. So try to, as you're working on fluid flow through porous media using ANSYS fluent software. So try to do more literature survey on the topic of interest, because you're working on fluid flow through porous media as a geoscientist. You should be more relevant and more focused on this hydrocarbon exploration production, because when you maybe publish your study somewhere in journals or conferences, as a geoscientist you should be very quick and adaptable to the questions that the people ask you. And after your uh, project also, you need to have a good career, right? So you can develop fundamentals of fluid flow through porous media, how actually fluid flows from one pore to another pore, if the pores are connected to each other, and if it is not connected, what are the strategies you will do to establish connection pathway? When you go for secondary recovery, how the study changes, and tertiary recovery, how the components interact with each other as a part of enhanced oil recovery. So you need to be good at basics that will help you to be a good fellow after your project completion at RJPT India. And okay, Mohammed Naeem Khan. I'm a fresh graduate geologist from Pakistan. Sir, I have one relevant question. Sorry for that, but I will ask as any relevant class like this seminar, because this class is a very good experience for me. Okay, yeah, we can plan such kind of classes. Okay, you can always talk to Advantage people. They are very good at planning. You can plan. You can talk to them, and we can have good courses from your perspective. Whatever you want, we can of course go ahead and plan those courses. Okay, the last question, Abdullah. I'm from Pakistan. I'm a student of petroleum and gas from UT Lahore. What are the economic considerations? Okay, in the tight reservoirs. So as I've told you, we need to look at calculation topics, the basic economic factors, the capital expense and operating expense. So in tight reservoirs, initially the capex is so high because the technology is not that developed and we have many complexities in development. Okay, so even though capex is so high, opex will even will even be more higher because, as I've told you, we should not deviate from the actual plan of the well design and the well planning and of course deliberation for the entire field development. So if you are not deviating from the plan from simulation study, we can be more economically safe. But if you are deviating and if there is any practical complexity in the rig side or the well side, we should bear the expenses as a part of OPEX. So of course, there are some considerations and I can take you through them in the actual course. And currently I'm unable to summarize. It's a vast topic at the outset. The OPEX is very important as a part of tight reservoirs, not the CAPEX. CAPEX is fixed, but OPEX is challenging and it is huge in tight reservoirs. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I think we can end. But I can give you 1 more minute. What you can ask. Okay, uh, I think that's all from my side. So I'll hand over the session to Swagat. Right, Swagat? Can I do that?
We can conclude now, sir.
Okay. Okay, so as an instructor, I suggest you to take this course because this course is very important and it is completely streamlined and customized to people of different disciplines. So in the meeting, I can see many are from geology departments. Okay, that's interesting. So you can take this course and uh, be good at reservoir surveillance in future if you're entering the ONG industry. Because from geology, you can either be in mining, metallurgy, mineral, but if you are in oil and gas, so this is a very good course for you, and you can take the course. And of course, from production facilities, operations, and of course, reservoir engineers, the kit and kin of this surveillance planning. So you all can be a part of this course and this journey. So the 6 days course will be very exciting, and of course, I'll deliberate the second part of this course after I complete the actual course in near future. So let's see how many will register and make the best out of it. Thank you for your time. All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah. Can I end this now or host should be given to you?
Yes, we can end it.
Okay. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, sir.